Hi everybody, my name is Philippou. I'm an e-commerce and digital senior executive with over a decade experience in e-commerce, digital and omnichannel. And I've worked across various formats of businesses, from digital media agencies, B2C, D2C wholesale commerce, B2B commerce, from all sizes and shapes of businesses, from small, medium-sized businesses to some of the largest companies or retail companies in South Africa. I've also worked across different formats or categories of product, from general merchandise to fashion and even luxury and niche retail. At the moment I work at Massmart, a Walmart company, and I head up some of our exciting e-commerce and digital portfolio. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it takes to get there, building a strategy for your business, no matter what it is. And the themes that I'm going to touch on today really are areas around understanding the different formats of commerce, examples of online to offline connections, building your plan and what to focus on, choosing the best channels and leveraging data, and building your solution right the first time, which I cannot stress enough. All right, so I'm going to cover this first theme, which is areas that you probably have heard about many times before, and I'm going to talk about it more in the context of today's discussion that I've got with you. So from an e-commerce perspective, we know that this is buying and selling over the internet, whether on a website or through an app. It's B2C, D2C, B2B, and even C2C, so customers to customers. So really this is things like eBay and Gumtree, that kind of thing. On its own, it's a single channel, and that would be considered pure play. When it comes to multi-channel, multi-channel is multiple ways to shop and engage with the company. Physical retail, e-commerce, and call centers. However, these channels operate separately from each other. When we talk about omni-channel, however, these are integrated multi-channel shopping and experiences linked to that. It's around seamless experiences for customers. It's how you move into a space of personalization, connecting the same customer across all the channels. And for physical retail, this is seen as a risk mitigating strategy. All right, so moving on from there, I'm going to talk a little bit about connecting online and offline. Now, I've only picked 4 themes I'm going to touch on to briefly give an example of how you connect the two. There's something called ROPO and the ROPO effect. These are digitally influenced in-store sales. Customers will find all of the information they need about a product online, but ultimately make a final purchase in store. And you get high ROPO categories like fashion, beauty, sports, and household items. But ultimately, almost every category you can think of has an example where customers will research a product online on your commerce platform and ultimately still choose to shop in store. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. From a pickup perspective, or BOPIS, so buy online and pick up in store, this is kind of the original online to offline example. The importance here is of pushing customers and feet into stores. And importantly, what comes with that is the opportunity to upsell. In fact, nearly 40% of customers typically shop additionally when they go and collect an online order from stores. It's also one of the most profitable types of digital commerce due to the fact that you're obviously dropping your logistics costs. Then there's things like kiosks and QR codes. And what I'm talking about here, kiosks support expanded product information. So you've got a kiosk in store, customer can go into that kiosk, read more around product and information about that product. They can look at things like extended ranges, so potentially looking at product ranges that are not available in that store. Maybe they're available at other stores, but importantly, it gives them the opportunity to look at this extended range. And in fact, it will also give customers the opportunity to use the kiosk to select items and shop those items, even if they're paying at a checkout counter. And ultimately, they can have that delivered to a store or delivered to their home. When it comes to QR codes, these you can have them as labels on products or as shelf labels. And really, these allow customers to have fast links to your site, and they can look at, similarly to a kiosk, your range online, but importantly also give customers product reviews, something that they won't necessarily see in stores. And that's always helpful in helping customers make an informed purchase decision. Finally, there's omni-channel returns. And with omni-channel returns, really what I'm talking about here is making it as easy as possible for a customer to buy online and return in store, or to buy it in store, in fact, and manage a return via your online channels or call centers. And that's really important to customers as well. All right, I'm going to touch a little bit around building your strategy. So there's 4 themes again I'm going to touch on here. And with the first one, or before I even get to that, in fact, with COVID, we've seen that almost 50% of retail businesses say that they'll invest more than ever into omni-channel. And I'm surprised it's not more. When it comes to building your strategy, you have to focus on your customer. You have to build a strategy that's not only suited to your company, but importantly, you don't get one size that fits all. You're not going to take someone else's strategy and apply it into a business. It's never going to work. So you have to understand what it means for your customer when developing your strategy. Customers ultimately want convenience more than ever, and you have to allow for that in your digital, your omni-channel strategy. You have to differentiate your proposition. You have to do market research on customer journeys and implement that through your strategy. You have to consider things like cross-channel customer support. Ultimately, you need to build a North Star. The size of the prize is important. You have to have long-term thinking, and you have to build backwards from that. You have to have that 5-10-year vision, and then you have to start implementing or creating your 1 to 3 year objectives that support and build a foundation that get you to that vision. You have to have concrete and measurable objectives, and you have to check your early momentum. This is important because you need to adjust when needed. It's important to be flexible in your strategy as long as it still gets you to the same end state, that same vision. You have to clarify goals. This is important across the organization. What is your aspiration? What's the intended outcomes? And what's the rationale behind it? You have to then mobilize the teams and set clear plans. This leads on to alignment. You have to ensure alignment and support from the top. The tone from the top is going to be critical to the success of any strategy like this. You have to ensure that each function owns a piece of that strategy where it's relevant. You have to embed KPIs and cascade goals throughout the organization so that everyone believes in it and works towards it. And then finally, you have to go all in. Too many companies simply just want to participate, and that's not good enough. You will be left behind. Again, coming back to focusing on this big, bold North Star. You have to transform mindsets and not just technology along the way. And you have to create a culture that supports change and is open to challenging the status quo and challenging, importantly, legacy thinkers in a business. Then we're going to talk a little bit about sales channels, mobile first and data. From a sales channel perspective, there's so many different options, but it's important to know your customer. You have to evaluate your audience and tailor solutions to serve your customers. You have to know where they spend most of their time, understand where the product categories are typically sold best, and how you're going to create solutions for that. You don't have to, or you don't want to overinvest in the wrong channels. And if you do have multiple channels, you often might need to design each based on their specific purpose, whether it's commerce, information, interactions with customers. When it comes to mobile first, globally more than 50% of customers are shopping on mobile, and more than 70% typically engage with your platforms on mobile first. And trust is a huge factor here. So you have to start product design and research with mobile and then move it from mobile to desktop. More often it's the opposite, so you have to change the way you do things. And there's some key considerations that I'll give tips on. Keep it simple and deliver only what the user wants when it comes to mobile. Prioritize content based on the limited space you have in mobile. Make it intuitive. Make your call to actions bold and consistent throughout. Make it fast. That's critically important. And avoid distractions, things like pop-ups that work well for desktop and not necessarily for mobile. And then test on real devices. When we talk about data, you have to be customer obsessed and data led. You have to use the data for your own competitive advantage. You have to also make sure that you understand if your company has a data strategy and how your business plan will leverage that data strategy in your goals as well. You have to consider things like DRIP, an acronym that I've learned over the years, which means data rich and insights poor, and you cannot be that. It's worthless having all this information and not translating that information into things that you can action ultimately, and that leads into things like personalization. And what I mean by personalization is delivering personal experiences by dynamically showing content to customers, product recommendations, and specific offers based on previous actions, browsing behavior, purchase history, demographics, and other things. You have to start with the basics. So things like, for example, improving search and serving more dynamic results based on queries. So for example, if someone's searching for bargain TVs. You don't want to just show them, as a result, just TVs. You want to show them maybe at the top of the list the items that are on special, that kind of thing. And then finally, you do need to ensure that you're obviously adhering to POPI and GDPR and those kind of things, and we have to protect our customers' data. All right, then I'm going to touch on a focus on operations, fulfillment, and integration. So what I'm talking about here is pretty straightforward. When it comes to operations, once you've developed a strategy and you start rolling it out, you have to consider back office operations when it comes to product or orders, inventory management. You have to look at order fulfillment, your people, processes, and technology that ultimately allow you and enable you to scale, and importantly, to serve customers the best ultimate experience with you. And this is why operational excellence is so critical. You know, sales are easy, but building trust comes from post-purchase excellence. When it comes to fulfillment models, there's so many different options that exist. And importantly, whatever you end up going with, inventory visibility and you're available to purchase or available to promise online is one of the toughest things to get right. You have to have a centralized inventory visibility. You have to create pressure in the business to ensure that there is really good data integrity and that your in-stock accuracy is spot on. Finally, you have to integrate, and this is really important. You have to have good integration that supports inventory visibility and management. You know, master data and having one source of product information truth is critical. You have to look at aggregated customer data, and you have to look at cross-channel customer support and personalization. That single view of customer is important. Importantly then, you have to focus on high leverage activities and automate the rest. Your high leverage activities are where you're going to get your most value. And you have to automate as much as possible so that it gives you the opportunity to scale. If you're manually doing everything or your team's doing everything manually, you're not going to be able to really reach that North Star if it's big and it's bold. Finally, I'm going to touch on a theme of building it right and building it to scale. So in this theme, really, again, another 4 different topics I'll cover. You have to look at brilliant basics. You have to invest in doing it right. You have to commit to building solutions that enable your vision. And ultimately, you need to look at ways to reduce anxiety for customers. Because shopping online, you know, like I've mentioned so many times, it involves so much trust. So you have to be obsessed with brilliant execution for your customer. You have to forget the sexy stuff. So earn your way to building these leading edge solutions, but focus on the basics. Brilliant basics focused on customer experience and long-term customer satisfaction is what's going to win. You have to think long-term and act short-term. And speed is everything here. You have to move fast, break a few things along the way, but ultimately stay true to that North Star. You have to make one big decision every day that leads you towards that North Star. You have to be very deliberate and encourage risk-taking within the culture of your business. You also have to have an agile approach. You know, making testing a habit. You have to research and get customer feedback, which is critical in the long-term success. And ultimately, it's actually cheaper in terms of implementation, specifically around technology as well. You have to respond to changing needs over sticking to plans. And this has come up so many times before. You know, continuous change through review and course correction is ultimately going to give you the best solution for your customers, and that's what you want. You have to have scalability. It is so critical, and I've seen too many times before where scalability is not something that's considered, and that North Star is not something that was put into scope right in the beginning. You know, tech needs to be able to build a foundation that allows for easy scaling. Even if your launch or your MVP, your minimal viable product, is basic. And again, it comes back to brilliant basics first. But you need to think about what your long-term goal is when building that MVP. You have to think about APIs, microservices, feature teams and development, modular architecture. You really have to think about all these different things that allow you to ultimately build something that might start small. But when it starts accelerating towards that North Star goal and vision, you have to have the ability to do so without having to rebuild everything from scratch. Scalable solutions and plans mean fast sales growth with low support, fast development, automation, and minimum staff. Ultimately, This is what I believe is going to get you to a point where you're going to have a successful business strategy when it comes to digital, e-commerce, and omni-channel. I hope you've enjoyed the talk. If you want to connect with me, please do so via LinkedIn. That's Paris Philippou. Follow me on there, connect with me on there, and I hope, again, you've enjoyed the talk. So thank you very much.